Skate Canada is going to stop holding national or international events in Alberta in a tantrum. And they say its decision relates directly to the province's bill. They say affecting transgender athletes, but that's a weird way to spin protecting safety and fairness in sport for women and girls. Stockwell, I think this is just a spiteful stunt. And I think the province has this exactly right, that you are welcome to compete in sports in Alberta. You just have to do it in either a mixed category if you identify as transgender, or in the category of your biological birth.
Well, that's a fair characterization for sure. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was shocked when I saw this yesterday. I posted on my X account that people should be calling, MPs should be calling for defunding Skate Canada. And Skate Canada obviously does great work in terms of sponsoring and helping to sponsor national and international events. But keeping in mind, and you've categorized it well, the bill is called, it talks about safety in sport.
Yes.
And talks about protecting girls from having to compete against biological males. But it goes further than that. Even in the commentary around the bill, the Premier and the government of Alberta is very clear. They feel that there should be, if people want it, a division for trans athletes. Let there be. So that way, nobody is excluded. But this business about forcing girls to have their dreams crushed by thinking one day they may be competing against a biological male, it's just not right. And if they're going to, Skate Canada is going to persist, I'm asking MPs to demand that Skate Canada be defunded. If you can't stand up and protect girls, you know what? I don't know if you deserve votes as an MP.
Yeah. I dug up the financials for Skate Canada, just so people understand this isn't just an arm's length organization of the state. Skate Canada, if we roll down, Olivia, to page 8, shows their funding from the federal government in each year of the document that I put in the chat there. Page 8. So government and other grants, they get $2.68 million a year outside of membership. It is so membership of the organizations that are under the umbrella of Skate Canada. It's the single largest revenue source for them. It's from the federal government. Safe Sport, I think, is related to the federal government as well. So they should be defunded if they do not protect fairness in sport for women and girls.
Well, they
It's
should
as simple
be,
as that.
sorry, they should be defunded for discriminating against women
Yes.
and girls, because that's what this is. And just to sort of push back a little bit against what the entire left is saying, is every trans athlete has a biological sex. Okay,
Yeah.
Every trans athlete has a biological sex. And where it matters in sport, you should compete in a category that aligns with your biological sex. This is not rocket surgery. This is not hard to figure out. Dan Smith is righting a wrong that has trampled our public institutions over the last number of years, and is aligning with what governing bodies worldwide are going to do. The International Olympic Committee is going this way, have recognized that there's been an egregious overreach into women's spaces and women's sports and women's experience, and we're not having it anymore. We're just not.
I dug around a little bit on this issue, and I thought, well, if there's really no basis for like according to the left, you hear them saying, well, what's the safety aspect? What's the fairness aspect in a non-contact sport like figure skating? As if any right-thinking person couldn't figure it out. But I thought, okay, well, let's drill down on the one metric that I know that the men did first and the men continue to do better and more reliably, and that's the quad. There have only been around 14 women who have ever successfully landed the quad in competition. 14. This is a regularly performed and landed jump in men's competitions all the time. Hundreds of athletes at the international level that are biologically male are landing the quad. 14 of the best female athletes have ever landed it in competition because we know, and men, and this is not a slight on women, men are just bigger, faster, stronger, bigger hearts, larger cardiovascular system, stronger bones, bigger muscles. Male puberty does that.
Lung
Yeah.
lung capacity, muscle
Yeah.
density, all of the things that are true. And the crazy thing is, in sports, we have 100 years of stats to show us
Mhm.
that men are faster and stronger and more physically able than women. This is just the facts of the matter. So this isn't a complicated issue. It's one that Alberta's Danielle Smith, who has the biggest balls in sports, okay, is putting to an end. But then along comes our federal government. Can we just talk about what the federal government is saying here? This is from Adam Van Couverdin. He
Yeah.
says, our government believes in a sports system that provides opportunities for all Canadians to participate and excel without discrimination, including the transgender community. Really nice, Adam, that you would prioritize that tiny, tiny minority of wrong people in this moment. Really good. Like, as far as I'm concerned, any government that believes this doesn't deserve to be a government anymore.
Yeah.
Like, they're showing their hypocrisy. Let's kick them out.
I'll go to Stockwell on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, you just mentioned too, and I'm glad you did on the funding aspect. And yeah, it's quite right. I think it's showing in the books it's 2.4 million. But Skate Canada also makes several $1 million available in grants across the
Yes.
country. So
Sure.
it's even more than, quite rightly you point that figure out. And on the safety aspect, of course, this law is applying now in Alberta across all sports. And talking not long ago with a woman who plays community rugby in Alberta, and she talks about the fact that she and her teammates are kind of horrified when at the one game they show up, and here is what is very obviously a transgendered player on the other team, much larger, as we've just heard, at least very correctly described it, larger muscle mass, broad shoulders, thick legs, everything else, and how this person seemed to really delight in the fact that he was, I'm trying to be delicate here, imposing himself on the
Yeah.
female athletes, especially in the scrum. Your viewers will know, I think, what a scrum is in rugby. But taking it back to skating, there's no question in terms of muscular development. You talk about quad, just the quad muscle themselves, the ability to be longer sustaining aerobically because of lungs and everything else. And at the same time, I'd like to hear from the trans community why they don't pursue, if I can use the phrase, a great movie actually called A League of Their Own. And I'm sure they'd get fans, they'd get people turning out. Why do they insist on wanting to crush girls is the thing that really bothers me. They won't answer that question.
Because it's part of the fetish that a great many of these people participate in, especially when those people are men, and especially when they are abusing women. That is part of it.
I think
The deeply entrenched hate for women is entrenched in this community. So yes, they delight in making us submissive. Yes, they delight in seeing all of these organizations take their side. And this is where women and and um, and our male protectors have to work to take this back for us.
Yeah, I'm very glad that Stockwell brought up rugby because my daughter is a varsity athlete at the national level, and rugby is her sport. And as fast and as good as she is, she's an elite level athlete. But and that's one of those sports that you can watch and you can see the women play, and then you see the men play, and it is a different sport
Yes.
altogether. And like you have to be crazy to not see the difference. And yet, I suppose some people are crazy because they're really attacking the premier on this issue. And I'm just going to read from the premier's statement, and every word of this is truth.
Mhm.
She said, "Women and girls have the right to play competitive sports in a safe and fair environment against other biological females. This view is held by the vast majority of Albertans and Canadians." That is so true. It's
Yes.
also common sense and common decency. Skate Canada's refusal to hold events in Alberta because we choose to protect women and girls in sport is disgraceful. I appreciate her language here. We
Yes.
expect they will apologize and adjust their policies once they realize they are not only compromising the fairness and safety of their athletes, but are also offside with the international community. Yeah, I imagine what the Americans have to say about this, including the International Olympic Committee, which is moving in the same direction as Alberta. And that is exactly true. You know, the international community recognizes that testosterone in the before times was a performance enhancing drug.
Oh, but
It's like
Skate
if women took it, it was you had an unfair advantage.
But and what Skate Canada is doing right now is showing us who they are, because they're pointing at their own policies, being like, but yes, you will see here that we have a policy about testosterone, and you will see that we have had this policy since 2022,
Right.
and you will see that there is a regulation that we made here to accommodate these special people. Danielle Smith is having none of it, and I love that she went in and was like, I expect an apology. Like,
She's right.
yes, Danielle, yes. You demand that apology. You know what? All women and girls and common sense, like-minded people should demand an apology. That's how far away this has gotten from reality.
Yeah, that's true. It just has to be also recognized that since we're talking about federal funding, I think this should be landing on the Prime Minister's desk.
Oh, I'm so
And
happy.
I think the Prime Minister should be asked the question. Unfortunately, I don't know if they let you in the scrum or not, but
Can we
they should be asked that question. Prime Minister, are you in favor of biologically born men being able to crush girls and women in sports?
well,
And, put them right on the spot.
we can partially answer that on his behalf, Stockwell, because I put this in the group chat. You know how you're sort of you become an aggregate of the people closest to you. Well, I am just delighted that the Prime Minister of Canada has photographic evidence being influenced by a trans woman from Alberta in this moment. Oh, here there, look at. Okay, so this is from Anna Murphy, who is
With
a
the equal voice.
biological male, who says, it was an honor and a privilege to hang out with Mark Carney and do all of the special things. So if we're having any illusions, Canada, about who's influencing Mark Carney, here we have it. I'm just, like I said, I'm just delighted that we have photographic evidence of this that will live in infamy forever.
Well, and going back to Adam Van Couverden weighing in on this as the amateur sport. I think he's the critic for amateur sport. I think that was Justin Trudeau's old
Or like
portfolio. Remember
Secretary of
when they
State?
Yeah,
Is he
remember when
Secretary
they
of State?
wouldn't let him near a real portfolio, but then they thought that he should be the prime minister of this country? Um, someone should ask him how fair it would have been for him as an Olympic athlete to have competed against women. So Adam Van Couverden, Secretary of State for Sport, which was Justin Trudeau's old job. He was the critic for that before they made him the prime minister of this country
Danger.
for some reason. But an Olympic athlete in a strength sport, kayaking, I believe, would it have been fair for Adam to have competed with the ladies? If
Just
It's
Adam against
the
all the
spirit
women.
moved
That's
him.
right.
Yeah.
it's a good example and one that could be put directly to him because of all the sports. It's hard to find one that is more dependent on large muscle mass groups. So your shoulders and your back, and again, your thighs in canoeing or in kayaking. And I don't know him. I don't pretend to know him, but everything I've seen, at least before he got into politics, he seemed to be a decent individual. Now things change when you get into politics. But I can't see him being able to look directly into the camera and say it would have been fair for him to compete against women. There'd be no contest. So that's why I'm saying, and MPs, people should be calling their MPs and asking that they put in the request that Skate Canada be defunded. And also, when you call your MP on something, ask him or her to get back to you with the response. Don't let them off the hook if you don't hear back from your MP.
Follow
When
up.
you make a request, follow up. If you still, because MPs get busy and it could be a week or two. If you are still not getting a response back, then nothing MPs fear more than anything than having the accusation that they don't get back to their constituents. That is terror territory for MPs. So then you would need to publish, I've tried to contact my MP. My MP does not get back to constituents. So you need to add that. Be polite, of course. Put in the first request, then give them the benefit of the doubt, wait a week and say, I haven't heard from you yet, wait another week, and then take out an ad that your MP does not respond to people.
Awesome plan, guys, straight from Stockwell Day, giving us the pathway forward. Thanks, buddy.
And uh, your Conservative MP should be pressured to bring the likes of Adam Van Koeverden before the Heritage Committee. I think that's the committee that this stuff falls underneath, to testify to this. Like, why are we giving money to organizations that do not respect fairness in sport for women and girls? And putting that question, look, I may never be able to get close enough to Adam Van Koeverden to ask him that question, but boy, he sure could be made to answer that question if he
Mhm.
were called to committee. And that's
Oh,
why I think committee work is just so darn important. Go ahead, Stockwell. Dave.
No, that's true. If you get called to a committee, of course you have to go, and you're right there in front of the camera, and you get asked the questions point blank, and it gives you the opportunity to respond. So MPs shouldn't be afraid of going to committee. And I would, as I said, I respect Adam as an athlete, and I'm sure he's doing a good job as an MP. I'm hoping he is for his sake. But I would like to see him look into the camera, the eye of the camera, and say, yeah, I think it's okay for guys like me to compete against girls and women. I'd like to hear him say that.